So today, I'm going to lead you in a meditation in honor of one of our congregants for a long time who has also led meditations at Unity of Madison, Garrett Walters. The anniversary of his passing is today. So I'm going to do a Garrett-style meditation. So if any of you have experienced that before, hopefully this will be close. And what we're going to do, just so you're aware of how this is going to go, is the point of the meditation is to fully embody our space, to fully be present in the moment, to be fully present in our body. And if we're not used to being fully present in our body and fully present in this space, it can be a little uncomfortable. And if it is, that's okay. But I just wanted to give you a little, fair warning, and as Garrett would say, tee-hee. So I invite you right now to get comfortable in your seat, to make sure that your feet are squarely on the ground, firmly on the ground. And I invite you to picture a grounding cord, whatever that looks like for you. This grounding cord could be like a tree trunk. It could be like a tube. It could be like a beam of light that goes right into the earth and meets at the center of the earth. So from the base of your spine to the center of the earth, picture that connection. And just feel what that feels like to make a connection with the center of the earth. The next thing I invite you to do is make a connection with the all that is, with the universe, God, the infinite, whatever you want to call it. And picture that energy from above your head coming in through your crown chakra and going down through all your major chakras and meeting in your third chakra and combining with the energy from the earth that's coming up through the base of your spine, where they meet together. And then I invite you to mix those two energies, the cosmic energy and the energy of the earth, in your third chakra with your own energy. And then imagine that energy slowly moving up the front of your energy systems, all the way through your crown and fountaining out the top of your head, and basically spilling over into your entire aura, that energy that you are that goes about a few feet all the way around your body, and imagining that just showering over. And then I invite you to place your attention in the center of your head, roughly where your pineal gland is, so right behind your eyes, kind of right in the center of your head. Place your attention there, and now we're going to use our imagination, because we're going to imagine the center of our head as a room. And the question we're going to ask ourselves is, what does that room look like? Does that room, is it dark in there? Is it light? Does it have comfortable furniture? Does it have comfortable surroundings? The other thing to notice is there anything in there that is not yours? Anything that's not you? If there is, I would invite you now to send that energy out of the room, down through your energy systems, to the base of your spine, and all the way down to the center of the earth, where that energy that's not yours will be transmuted and then sent back up to you as your energy that you can use for your daily life. And from that place in the center of your head, right here and right now, give yourself permission to be in present time. Nowhere to go, nothing to fix, no problems to solve, nothing that has to be improved. Just you, the spirit, the being, in communion with you, the body, in agreement with each other. Now, from the place in the center of your head, say hello to the energy of the Earth Mother. You can simply just say to yourself, hello, and you will receive a hello back, and I invite you to receive that. And then reach out to the universe, to the all that is, and say hello, and receive that hello back. And now, if you recognize anything in your aura, in your energy system, in your body, that feels like it doesn't belong to you, that is not yours, just like we did from the center of our head, send it down that grounding cord to the center of the earth and let it go, where it will be transmuted and come back up and become energy that you can use to do what you need to do in this world. And right now, in this present moment, we will sit for a moment in silence and appreciate our connection and our communion with the earth, with the cosmos, and with ourselves. Garrett would always say that the safest place for your spirit in your body is to be in the center of your head, to focus your attention there. That's the safest it feels. So I invite us, whenever we're feeling out of sorts, whenever we're feeling threatened, whenever we're feeling at ease, that we can always, at any moment of the day, put our attention back in the center of our head and feel peace. He would also say that when you're fully present in your body, that is when you're going to feel the best. And making sure that you're the only one in your body, only energy. Because anytime we take on other people's energy, whenever time we take on the world's energy, that's where we become uncomfortable. That's when we experience discomfort. So whenever we feel that, we can always send that energy down to the center of the earth and get some relief. I wish you a beautiful day, grounded, centered, and present in your truth.
So let's hear it again for the Unity Jazz Band. See, I've been to a few Unity churches, and I honestly think we might be the only Unity church that has a jazz band. I don't know. If anybody else has ever been to one that has one, let me know. But I don't think we have. I don't think there is another one. But for those of you I may not have met before, I'm Reverend Evin Wilkins. And for those of you who are attending online that I may not have met, I'm Reverend Evin Wilkins. And I'd like to welcome you to our Unity of Madison Church. And thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. So we're going to take a huge leap from jazz to Shakespeare this morning. They go really well together, you know, because when I think of jazz, I automatically think of Shakespeare and vice versa. I mean, you know. But is anybody in here a Shakespeare fan? Do we have any Shakespeare fans? I figured we would have a few. Yeah. One of the things that always used to kind of crack me up a little bit was, those of you who know me a little bit know that I grew up in a little town in West Texas. Well, not a little town so much anymore, but a town in West Texas called Midland, Texas. And about 20 miles from Midland, it's called the kind of the not as nice, the more rebellious sibling of Midland called Odessa, Texas. But anyway, it was always kind of funny because Odessa has a replica of the Globe Theater, the Shakespeare Globe Theater. So we went on a field trip there in high school, but that was always the least place I would think of there being like anything to do with Shakespeare in Odessa, Texas. But anyway. But whether you're a Shakespeare fan or you're not a Shakespeare fan, I'm sure most everybody in here is familiar with the quote, "To be or not to be," from a young Hamlet. Yeah, I think everybody probably knows that. But and those of you who are Shakespeare fans, you're probably going to enjoy the talk today because it's themed a little bit around that famous quote. See, I can make a talk out of anything. Sometime we'll have to have that. I'll be like, somebody give me a quote earlier in the week and I'll create a talk on it. We'll just do that for fun. But anyway, but what we're going to do is take that quote, "to be or not to be," we're going to unitize it a little bit today. So, I feel since I'm basing my talk on that quote that I also should really likely share the whole thing because it's really kind of all applicable. But the whole thing says, "To be or not to be," that is the question. "Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing in them, to die sleep. No more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation, devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come." And y'all can tell I'm not really a Shakespearean reader or anything, but anyway. But to me, that whole thing is very powerful. Is it not very powerful? But maybe I feel that way because to me, in that, there's a lot of unity teachings that can be gleaned from that entire piece of poetry. I want to take some of this today and apply it to a decision that we must make daily while we live our daily lives. Moment by moment, really, not just daily. We can narrow it down to moment by moment or second by second. What happens when we make the decision to be? And what happens when we make the decision not to be? That is the question. But last week, if you heard my talk, I mentioned one of my favorite authors who happens to be Dan Millman. Now, one of his books will occasionally grab my attention again as I browse my bookshelves at home, and when it does, I'll usually pick it up. And I do that with all my books, because if a book all of a sudden grabs my attention that I haven't seen in a while, I'm thinking, there might be something in that's something I need to know. But one of Dan Millman's grabbed me again lately, and the most recent one that I've been glancing through is his Wisdom of the Peaceful Warrior. And he mentions to be or not to be in the book. And he mentions this because at one point in his life, he talks about how he was contemplating suicide. And he said in the book, "In this state of psychological paralysis and suffering, I was forced to confront questions about meaning, life, and death. As I stood on this inner precipice, I came face to face with the core of my life, my identity, and my existence." And for me personally, I don't think that we must be on the brink of something such as suicide to come to that place in our lives. That place where we approach and stand on that inner precipice. I think it happens many times in our lives. Those times when we may feel conflicted over something, maybe over a decision that we have to make or something that's happening in our lives. Maybe if we're feeling confused or probably likely what a lot of us have felt over the past year, isolated even. Perhaps even wondering, hey, what's the next step going to be in my life? What's the next thing that I'm being called to do? What decision should I make? Remember last week I opened my talk by asking you all if you've ever heard of or pondered the question, what is the meaning of life? That is where that question is really, or this is where that question is just really driven home about what is the meaning of life. So Mr. Dan Millman goes on to say, "You are a story in the making, and no one can predict what the next chapter, the next day, or the next moment will bring." But maybe we can't always predict, but we can, however, decide how the next chapter is going to be down or how the next chapter is going to be written. And does anyone know of any way we could do this? Anybody, just off the top of your head. What's one of the ways we could write the next chapter? Yeah, there's lots of ways we could write the next chapter. But one of the ways I know those tie into that. It's by utilizing our principles and our tools here at Unity. And those that we learn even in other spiritual teachings, right? Because there's so many different types of spiritual teachings and so many paths out there in which to learn from. But one of the ways we can do this actually is something that's really big here at Unity, and it's our third Unity principle. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah, it's our thoughts and our experiences. Yeah, I always like to use, she's a Unity minister, Reverend Ellen Debeport's description in her book, The Five Principles, because I feel like she explains it really well. She says that the third principle, she expands it a little bit and says, human beings create our experiences by the activity of our thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. And that includes to be or not to be. So I'm a really visual person, and when I think of life, I visualize this giant chalkboard or this giant whiteboard, depending on what you prefer. Or maybe you prefer a canvas, an empty canvas. But if you're thinking about a chalkboard or a whiteboard, think about the beginning of a school year, right? And those of you who are retired teachers or those of you who are still teachers likely know what I'm talking about. You walk into the classroom at the beginning of the year and that chalkboard's all clean. That whiteboard's clean. It's been cleaned and it's just a blank slate just waiting for the next school year to fill it up. It's ready to be filled up with whatever you decide to fill it up with, right? It doesn't fill up itself. Somebody has to actually fill it up. And those things that you start to fill it with, where do they usually start? They start in your head, right? They start as a thought, in your head. Whatever is in your head sets everything else into motion until eventually your hand brings it out onto the board in the manifest realm or onto the canvas. Now, envision life as one big giant chalkboard or canvas or whiteboard waiting to be filled. It wants to be filled. That's why it's there. That's why it exists. You first bring into your thoughts whatever it is you want to fill on that board or canvas. And the beauty of it all is with that blank slate or that blank canvas, that you can fill it with whatever you choose to fill it with, whatever you choose to put on it. Now, occasionally, something may make its way there, something that we may not really want to see, right? Sometimes we may walk up to our canvas or our board feeling irritated. Maybe we're feeling a little angry or a little bit of confusion or isolation or something that just doesn't really serve our highest good. We're feeling that when we walk up to that canvas or that chalkboard. Maybe we're just feeling unloved or just entirely just kind of put out with life at any given moment. Does anybody else in here ever do that, or is it just me? I might just be up here, talking about my own life, but it sounds like I might be in good company here. But as a result of some of those things that I'm experiencing at that time, I may look at that canvas and realize that I've written or I've painted something that goes along with whatever I'm experiencing in that present moment. Whether it's something that I perceive as good or whether it's something I perceive as not so good. Sometimes I even walk up and I'm like, maybe I should even just erase that or kind of take it off a little bit, just kind of backtrack a little bit there. But before I erase those things, before I completely remove them, I can maybe even also step back and look at it from a different perspective. Maybe my experience brought whatever I placed there forward because it was something that I needed to see. Maybe that crooked line that I drew, maybe I could add a few more lines to it here and there and maybe create a really beautiful tree or something out of that crooked line. Or maybe that long equation, doing math that I'm not very good at, but maybe that equation that I successfully tried to solve on that whiteboard was unsuccessful because it was through that unsuccessful attempt that I learned to do it better the next time, that I learned how to solve that equation. And maybe sometimes it just is or it just was, whatever I decided to put on the board. Maybe sometimes I drew something from what I perceived as a negative experience in my life because I just needed to get it out. Just plain and simple, I just needed to get it out. No more, no less. To be or not to be. Only I can create my experiences of what is to be or not to be in my life. Maybe to be or not to be also results in me living my life in a new way. Lots of times we've practiced the old way, right? We're pretty familiar with the old way. We've practiced the old way until we're just blue in the face and we are just tired of it. We're like, the old way's just not working anymore. I'm tired of it. Maybe I need to look at something in a new way. We know that it's time for something new and we want something new. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be studying how to do things differently in the first place, right? Maybe we might not even be studying spiritual principles at all, because why would we necessarily need them if things are going exactly the way we want them to all the time, right? If we're walking around in a land of rainbows and unicorns and everything's just peachy keen all the time, might as well just stay home and relax. Now, Dan Millman says in his book, he says, you don't have to do anything except to stop seeing the world from the viewpoint of your own personal cravings. Loosen up. When you lose your mind, you'll come to your senses. I kind of laughed about that too. Because you may be thinking about that quote, you may be replaying it over in your head and think, hey, that sounds pretty good. But then you think about it, you're like, hey, but wait a minute, hold on. Lose my mind? What? Okay, maybe that doesn't sound so good after all. Or does it, though? Now, I'm not sure how many of you have read Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. But in his books, he bases everything on this teacher that he had. And it's a spiritual teacher by the name of Socrates. And it's not the Socrates you might be thinking about. It's not the famous Socrates. But his teacher was named Socrates in the book. And Millman lets us know in the book that when Socrates told him to lose his mind, he wasn't talking about becoming irrational. I know some of you were thinking, hey, that sounds fun, but that's not what he was talking about. He was, as Mr. Millman states, talking about, on the contrary, to pay attention to the reality around me rather than merely thinking about it. So what does that mean? To me, it means a shift. It means a shift in perception. What is it that I am paying attention to on a daily basis? What do I put in my mind? What do I choose to put in my mind each and every day? Each and every morning when I start my day, what am I choosing to put into my mind? What do I choose to put into my mind each and every moment? That's probably more the question. I'd like to picture it like this. I think lots of times we walk around with a veil that's covering our faces. When we do, we view life through that veil that's covering our faces. Sometimes we even wear one that skews our sight just a little bit. It makes us see things as they may not really actually be. Maybe we're wearing a red veil and everything we look at appears to be the color red. You even look up at the sky and it appears to be red, but does that make the sky actually red? Is it any less blue because we're viewing it in a certain way? Sometimes we need to just move that veil over to see the sky for the actual color that it is. What if we were to agree to lose that part of our mind that tells us that we, A, must wear the veil in the first place, and B, that part of our mind that makes us feel as if we even need to wear it in the first place? Wouldn't you rather just take it off and see things or see the colors as they really are, to see life as it really is? To feel the breeze and the sunlight on your skin instead of that barrier that's blocking those things from getting through and perhaps skewing our perception. So remember the quote that Mindy gave from our second spiritual reading from Osho. Once you have started seeing the beauty of life, ugliness, and we'll say those things that you perceive as ugly, start disappearing. If you start looking at life with joy, sadness starts disappearing. You cannot have heaven and hell together. You can only have one. It is your choice. And I'm going to repeat that again. It is your choice. And what you choose to see is up to you, day by day, moment by moment. Because every single moment we're making the decision to be or not to be. So I want to ask everyone to just close your eyes for just a moment. And bring to mind that question, to be or not to be. And think about what it is that you want to be. Don't give too much thought to it. Just what immediately comes to your mind. What is it that you want to be? And how does the thought of being what you want to be make you feel? How does it look? So I want you to hold on to that. I want to invite you to hold on to that and to use that as your anchor. And I want for you to take it with you anytime the thought of what you don't want to be or what you don't want enters your mind. Use that as your anchor. And you may now go ahead and just open your eyes. But take that with you. Take that what you want to be with you. And the feeling. Use the feeling to help back that up. So to be or not to be, that choice is always yours. Namaste. All right. And I'm now going to invite Steve up in a little bit of a different capacity as our board president, because we had our board meeting this past week, and he's just going to give everyone an update. So, Steve?
Good morning. As Evin mentioned, we had our monthly meeting this past Wednesday. Our first item of non-routine business was discussing the formatting of a document we're going to use for a job evaluation we're going to do for Reverend Evin in October. We had a maintenance team report on the removal of the old HVAC unit, which is on the roof in the back there above us. We approved an expenditure of up to $7,000 for the work that will be required. We're going to have to bring in a crane, lift the thing off. Then we're going to roof over the opening. This work will be paid for from the Building for Our Future fund. We also agreed to take out a home equity line of credit from Heartland Credit Union. This is for as a safety net for any possible cash flow issues that could arise in the future. And Heartland is willing to provide the line of credit at considerably less cost than Monona Bank. We had a brief discussion about the bookstore and tossed around some ideas about how to use that space going forward in addition to the Unity literature we'll continue to sell in there. We also had a discussion about the issue of masks on Sunday morning in the sanctuary. I know there are some people who don't necessarily feel they need a mask. They may have had their shots and have particularly strong immune systems. And I can appreciate that position, but I would also ask those people to consider the wearing of a mask as a sign of love for your fellow congregants. Our local government has mandated wearing of masks indoors because there are still risks that you might be an unwitting carrier of the virus, and even if you're immunized. So try to think of that as an expression of concern for others. And speaking of local government, I'd like to ask any trustees who are here to please come up forward. I believe Nancy is out of town and Joanne is not feeling well today. So I have a document from the County Executive's Office, County of Dane Proclamation. Whereas the Reverend Evin Wilkins has served as senior pastor of Unity of Madison with distinction, ability, compassion, and humor for 2 years. And whereas Mindy Wilkins has served as keeper of the flame, office volunteer, e-blast and Facebook editors, worship assistant, and event coordinator for Unity Worldwide Ministries. And whereas Reverend Evin has patiently endured a 1.5 years of pandemic at his first full-time church and expanded Unity of Madison's online presence and outreach, and whereas Reverend Evin has provided compassionate hospital and end-of-life pastoral care for our congregants. And whereas Reverend Evin has provided inspired spiritual leadership, a fresh vision of ministry, and expanded networking with other ministers and Unity organizations. And whereas Reverend Evin and Mindy have brought a living example of what it means to live Unity principles to our community. And whereas Reverend Evin Wilkins and his wife Mindy Wilkins, native Texans both, have endured 2 Dane County winters and are still among us. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Joe Parisi, Dane County Executive, on behalf of the residents of Dane County, do hereby declare this day, Sunday, September 19th, 2021, to be Reverend Evin and Mindy Wilkins Day in Dane County.
I don't have any whereases. Sorry. But I would like to invite Rev Evin and Mindy to come forward and stand here. So we want to thank you for your dedicated service since you've come here. And so on behalf of the board and many members of our congregation, we have a gift for you and some cards for you. You're welcome. And, well, you could open the white envelope if you want. Yes. And just look in there. Can you see it? Okay. Are you happy?
I'm happy.
All right, so if you would come, the two of you could come and stand here and face the congregation. Let's do our unity. Hold up your hands, get them all energized, and we'll do the unity blessing. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ you are.
I just want to say, we love each and every one of you. And I have to say, I know that we're all like-minded because you at least pretend to laugh at my jokes. So I appreciate that. But in all seriousness, we do love each and every one of you. So thank you so much for your continued warm welcome to the state of Wisconsin.